So we're happy to have folks here and both joining us here on Hawk Hill, as well as some folks joining us across all three campuses who can't be here in the Campion Center. So welcome. We thought that this community lunch, we would just do maybe a little dialogue, a little back and forth. One of the things that we've been emphasizing over the last year with planning for the future and talking about all of the changes that happen around us and how we can lean into those and make good choices. That part of that requires dialogue. So Dr. McConnell and I, this Mission Week, are happy to have a conversation with you. So I will introduce to you the director of the work, Dr. Cheryl McConnell.
Thank you. Thank you. Two things to start with. Number one, absolutely get up and go get more food, go get your drinks, go get desserts. Just because Dan and I are up here having a conversation doesn't mean that the food stops and the happiness stops, and just keep on going. So promise me you'll do that, right? And the second thing is that Dan just introduced me as the director of the work. So think of that. I'm the president of the university, right? So you all know that as a president of the university, I report to the board of trustees, and I have a fiduciary or a legal duty to run the university in the way that it's financially sustainable, that it meets its mission, that it serves the students. Equally important to that role is I have been appointed by the Society of Jesus to be the director of the apostolic work here at St. Joseph's University. And I take both of those roles very seriously. And director of the work means that I'm responsible to assure our progress on achieving the Jesuit mission and our own university mission consistent with the apostolic preferences universally with the Society of Jesus. So not only do I run the university, I am the keeper of the mission. Dan thinks he's the keeper of the mission.
Right.
I'm the keeper of the mission.
I just keep track of the keeper of the mission and do what I'm told. No, it's wonderful. And so at Jesuit universities, it's common now that the provincial will come as the provincial or the provincial's representative did at Cheryl's inauguration, and officially commissioned her. It was part of all of the moving parts of the inauguration, commissioned her as the director of the work. And so each year she meets with leadership within the Society of Jesus to talk about that, as well as we have ongoing, all of us in different ways in different departments have ongoing dialogue with all of our friends and co-colleagues at other Jesuit universities across the country, for sure. So also the Jesuit universities appoint the often enough, I'm hired by the university, by the president, to be the chief mission officer. So that's the fancy name for what I do. Many of you probably don't know what I do. I try to keep that as vague and as fluid as possible because you can't really be worry about outcomes if you're, moving target, So it's good. I love what I do, actually, though. I've been in the Office of Mission for 21 years, and I actually love what I do because it's got wonderful variety. And this is one of the kind of things that I love to do, that we love to do.
One of the things I remember when I was provost is I would always try to schedule a meeting with Dan when I was provost, and he would never return. Yeah, he doesn't keep a Google Calendar or anything like that. And I said, well, what does he do all day, right? Then I became president, and now I think, what doesn't he do?
Thank you. I had to actually say that to one of my bosses. Well, what do you do? I said, what don't I do? All right. Anyway, and I come pretty cheap, just so you know. No. So anyway, one of the things we are going to talk a little bit, I think, and open up with a dialogue about the four apostolic preferences of the Society of Jesus. So in addition to our own mission statement, which we're reflecting on and considering this whole week of Mission Week, and by the way, while you're here, feel free not only to get up and get food, but you can go over there and buy one of our Mission Week shirts from Eric. And there's also little freebies over there with regards to things that you can just take away for free. So please feel free to stop over to see Eric, and thank Eric for all the hard work that he and his committee have done to make Mission Week a reality. We have a wonderful, wonderful Mission Week committee that crosses all three campuses, and they've done a fabulous job. So one of the things we thought we would do is just talk a little bit about these four apostolic preferences that we've been talking about off and on in different ways, interwoven into our life here at St. Joe's, but maybe because this is Mission Week, the director of the work and the chief mission officer thought maybe it would be good to have a dialogue or a conversation about them, because although they are preferences of a religious order in the Roman Catholic Church, the Society of Jesus, otherwise known as the Jesuits, they do in some ways can filter down into our life, but not probably in exactly the same way as they would for the Jesuits when the Jesuits are doing their Jesuit thing. And so there was once a tour, by the way, on campus where they were walking down Lapsley Lane, and the tour guide said, "This is Arupe Hall, the Jesuit community where the Jesuits do what Jesuits do." That's what, which I thought, I like that. Again, vague and fluid and kind of ready for anything.
Yeah.
But these apostolic preferences are things that we would like to just share a little bit. So I'm going to, Cheryl and I are going to go back and forth on all four of them, but then open it up for a dialogue on how is it that as we unfold our lives here, these things can become part of our own imagination about the mission in addition to our mission statement. So I'll start with the first one, which is showing the way to God. So of course, my colleagues in campus ministry aren't here, but it's not just my colleagues in campus ministry, but people across the campus who share our faith, share our spirituality in a variety of ways. And of course, just recently we celebrated our interfaith prayer service to call on blessings for the new year. And again, people from all different traditions sharing from their own tradition. It's just a wonderful way for us to exchange our own personal beliefs in a way that's just appreciative and respectful. And so I think for myself, there's all kinds of ways, as we say in our mission statement, finding God in all things, a line that St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, used very intentionally and very broadly and often. I feel like there's a way in which we can tap into our own understanding of our spiritualities on campus, understand how God is moving among us, a sense of the divine, and be able to find the spaces that, in appropriate ways, to really share that. We certainly share it through the curriculum where students study thoughts on and the study of God, whether it's in theology or in religious studies. We also have topics in other departments that explore issues of faith, especially the dialogue between faith and reason. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunities across our campus where our students can live both a devotional life in their own practice, how they can have opportunities to learn how to pray in their own way, in their own spirituality, and to come to know the beliefs of different religious traditions, but especially the Catholic tradition, which sponsors St. Joe's. So I feel like there's often a way in which we can understand our own sense of that in all kinds of ways across the university, and that we have the freedom to do that and being creative. I think we're very creative in doing that. So I'm going to stop there on showing the way to God, but the next one would be accompanying young people to a faith-filled future.
Yeah, so the second one, and I want to emphasize something that Dan said. These are universal apostolic preferences that go across every work that is sponsored by the Jesuits. And in Philadelphia, that's Jesus School, St. Joe's Prep High School, St. Joseph's University, and Old St. Joe's Parish. And so we all share these apostolic preferences, and actually every sponsored work around the world shares these apostolic preferences, and they will come into play differently in the different works. So the way that Jesu shows the way to God is different than the way we show the way to God at a university with many, many different faiths. Same thing with walking with the excluded. Walking with the excluded, you will see here at our university in many ways. You will see it in the classroom, in our discussions and content of health disparities across the country. You will see it in income inequalities. So you will see it embedded into the curriculum of our work here at the university. You will also see it in faculty research. You will see it in teaching. You will see it in our work in our different offices and programs, whether it's the Office for Student Success, the Office of Inclusion and Diversity. All of those things are our enactment of walking with the excluded in the work that we do here at the university. I'm thinking of probably 100 different examples come to mind how we interact with community organizations, and our students serve as interns, but they also serve as community volunteers and community organizers. And this is across every single campus. It enacts itself differently in Lancaster, and it enacts itself differently here at Hawk Hill and differently in University City, with the common goal of understanding and engaging with the needs of others and serving that world and making sure that we walk with and accompany and not just serve. It's that culture of engagement and enrichment.
Well, no, and I was really both moved really and inspired by when our faculty leadership some years ago put that into their own evaluation as faculty.
That's right.
That community engaged scholarship is something that we at St. Joseph's use as one of the four ways in which we look at our academic life here, and that it is even a part of how faculty understand and examine themselves on their academic journey as they grow in experts in their own field. And so that was just really helpful. And of course, we've had, as Dr. McConnell mentioned, beautiful examples of partnerships with organizations. There's in the Philly metro area, there's most of the community-based organizations have a relationship with us in one way or another through different departments. And that happens so organically and across our university with individuals who come to know each other. And some of those, of course, are very formalized partnerships that have been going on for decades. But it makes us a better place when we understand the real needs and the real realities and the real expertise. We do this all the time through service learning, and we do it through our Philadelphia Service Immersion Program. We always say to our students, and through our weekly service, we say, you are coming to learn an expertise from folks who have an expertise in their own experience in their own communities. And we bring that into dialogue, into exchange in our own classrooms, especially through things like service learning, but also when we do service reflection. And here at St. Joe's, we have a preference for and really ask of that all service on this campus always be reflective and always look to an exchange, an equitable exchange between us and our community partners as we walk with those who are excluded or underrepresented in certain ways. They also have a richness and an expertise that they share with us, making us a better university. Accompanying young people.
The next one is an accompanying young people for a culture for a hope-filled future. I thought a lot about this one last night when I was prepping for this meeting today. In almost every talk that I give, I talk about the importance of higher education and how it could not be more important today. And the reason why is that this generation of students that are graduating are going to be the most impactful and powerful generation in the history of you and I's lifetime. But they also will inherit the most complex challenges that we have ever seen. And our responsibility is to make sure that we accompany them and that we help develop them for a hope-filled future. I don't know about you, but when I talk with students, there's a lot of anxiety there. And there's a lot of angst and there's cynicism. And I think of cynicism as like a shell, a protective shell, that it protects you from the depth of engagement that you might be afraid to do. But that shell, that cynicism, also prevents possibility. It also prevents the deep engagement and with the intractable problems of the world. And that's what we have to get to. You see, do you remember in the fall launch, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but one of my favorite quotes is about hope. Do you remember that quote? It was about hope is often seen as something that's ephemeral, made of spider webs and whispers. But that's not hope. Hope has dirt on her face. She has blood on her knuckles. She has cobblestones in her hair as she rises to give it another go. There's a difference between hope and optimism. Optimism is a state of mind that things are going to be okay. Hope is the nitty-gritty. Get in there and let's fix things. I believe in this so much that I'm willing to engage deeply in this, and that gives me hope for the future. And when I think about that, this is a really big one for me, accompanying our youth in a hope-filled future, is that we build this grit, we build this resilience, we build this deep engagement and encounter with problems so that we do accompany them and they have hope. And we all have hope for a future that's brighter.
No, and I agree with Cheryl. There was some years ago, in my own family. I remember talking to some of the younger members of my family, and there was a point when it dawned on me that they've grown up in a world that didn't just presume a kind of an American optimism or that things are developing. You know, I grew up in a world where we thought science is just always evolving and developing something new, and new improvements come along. That they grew up in a world where that was not part of their imagination or their narrative. And it sort of shocked me a little bit because I thought, yeah, that's happened around me. And I haven't always noticed it, even though I've spent a big part of my life working with young people. So for what I really find is wonderful here at St. Joseph's is with our students in a variety of ways, and with all of you really in your personal interactions, is the ways in which we not only accompany them in encouraging who they are, their gifts, their talents, their knowledge, but also what's possible and doable. So we do a lot of mentorship here at St. Joe's. I remember some years ago when we were doing our middle states evaluation, and the visiting team was asking about mentorship, and one of our faculty said, "We mentorship the hell out of our kids." And I was like, "Good, you're right, because we do. It's a place that's still small enough, and the way we interact with our students, we do mentor them, and they ask for that actually. But also, I think there's a way in which we also do a lot of laying out opportunities for leadership that is extremely accessible and doable while they're here. And so with that, I think we do start to create a scaffold and a path forward where students do the doable and accomplish the things that they know that transforms at least the world in some way. And then they always see that as a forward motion that steps them into the compelling act of hope. Pope Francis, in his autobiography, which he simply titled Hope, talked about hope as not, as Cheryl mentioned, not some kind of idealism to aspire to, but it's a forward motion of action. It's an act, it's always an act of hope. It's doing things that step you into hope. And I'd like to think that our students understand that. They understand that sometimes when we have our own Jesuit values that come forward. One of those is magis, coming from a part of the spiritual exercises where the person on retreat would discern that in this time and in this moment, I would do something that's deeper or of greater value in competing good values and competing options, and choose that greater good for me now. And that word magis, though, is an adverb. It's not a noun. It's always qualifying who we are, what we do, and what our actions are. And so I think there's a way in which if we can keep saying your choices and your life and your forward motion in life is always going to have that opportunity for that greater good, that greater quality of you and your actions. And let that always be for you a grace and a hope that leads you into the next one and the next one and the next one. Yeah. Caring for our common home. So we, of course, have this has been part of our one of our goals in our last mission priority examine, which we did a few years ago. One of our 3 goals was caring for our common home, or considerate of our environment. We actually came up with it just a couple months before the Jesuits made it their apostolic preference. I'm just saying we were there first. I'm not saying they read our plan and were inspired, but I think they were working on it too. Partly because I think it's such a concern and such something that we should all be needing. The other thing too is we had opportunities that allowed us to step forward into that, like the way in which the Arboretum came on board for us as part of our campus and part of our community. Again, an extension out to the community beyond campus, even though it's a part of our campus. And in fact, here at Mission Week, there's a number of events going on in the museum in Arboretum, which is fabulous. So I think there's a way in which we really knew that we couldn't ignore what is just sort of talk about the air we breathe figuratively and literally. So we knew that this had to be an important step for us as a university. And it, of course, is in great concert with the Society of Jesus and their priorities.
So when you think about our Laudato Si initiative, this was an encyclical by Pope Francis way back in, I think, 2015, put out a call for participation by universities in this and how we might contribute to that. And again, it's for caring for our common home. And so when we thought about leaning in, what does it mean for us to lean into this? How do we go about this? Well, we were doing a lot. And a lot of that work was led by Clint Springer, And Clint Springer has been a champion of this for many, many years. And what I love, I remember my first conversations with Clint back when I was provost. We were talking about re-engaging the Institute of Environmental Stewardship. And we were even talking about the name and how important that name was. It wasn't environmental sustainability, it was environmental stewardship, because we are stewards of the land and stewards of the earth and our common home. And I loved the thought of that. And so building upon that and building upon the other works, we've expanded that now into a collaborative where we have measurements coming in all ways. You know, when you look at Sister Thea Bowman, the largest geothermal building in Philadelphia, and we're now measuring our carbon output to make sure that we can track things on a more sustained basis. So when you see how this is envisioned and enacted within our university, you see it in the curriculum and the majors. You see it in faculty research. You see it within the programs in the Arboretum and in the Barnes Foundation events. You see it in our businesses, our business practices. I was just reading a briefing, and Aramark has reduced food waste by 31% between fall and the spring semesters. And that is fantastic. That is a fantastic progress for understanding the complexities and making real actions. And so our commitment to caring for our common home is big, and it's real, and it pervades all areas of the university. One of the ways that I love to think about it is I think about it that as a university, we can boldly say science matters, right? And faith matters. So science matters because climate change is real. And faith matters is because this is our home. It's our home provided by God. And by golly, we have a responsibility to take care of it.
Amen. Yeah. So I think maybe we'll just open this up for a little dialogue, because and again, keep eating, keep getting some desserts. There's I think beignets over there, you know, try a little, and there's drinks. So please feel free to keep mixing it up with certainly with the food, this wonderful food. Thanks to our Aramark team for giving us this wonderful lunch. Appreciate it. By the way, one of the things I do is I slip in and out of the cafeteria all day, and I actually notice that so many of our Aramark employees also are great mentors to our students. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes giving them wonderful advice, sometimes solicited or not, and that's okay. I know that when I was a student here, I was benefited by a lot of unappointed mentors, especially among the administrative assistants here, who told me when I was maybe needing to get my life in order, which I appreciated. So anyway, so anybody have something they want to offer or share? Feel free. Kate. Yep, if you could, so that they can hear.
I just have a basic question. Why are they called preferences? I'm sure that was a distinct decision.
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure. Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer?
I have no idea. So, yes.
So again, that's interesting, because they didn't want it to look like just a strategic plan, preferences or strategies, that this was something that was deeper. So we have a preference, and there again, as Cheryl mentioned, this is for every Jesuit ministry in the world. Okay, so that's, you know, just among the universities, that's 200 organizations. You know, when you add the other schools, it's like 3,000 schools. I mean, it's the largest educational network, but then it has all these other ministries of all sorts. So they really wanted to say this, how does this fit everybody? Well, it's a preference for the Jesuits, and can you prefer to figure out how to make this work for you in your place? So just here we have a wonderful conversation going on between our 4 ministries in Philadelphia, as Cheryl pointed out. 3 of those directors of the works are not Jesuits. They run 3 different schools. And then there's the pastor of Old St. Joe's. All of them, though, have a different challenge to implement these preferences in some way in their school or in their place. So one of those actually worked out that we even collaborated on that. All of our institutions, along with others, including Villanova, talk about ecumenism. We had, like, for instance, on the Feast of St. Francis, and Cheryl walked part of that, our walk, what do we call it? Laudato Si walk between one Laudato Si university and the other. At first, it was supposed to go from St. Joe's to Villanova, until everyone realized it's slightly uphill for 7 miles. Then they reversed it. But even as they came that 7 miles on that day, we engaged any number of other organizations along the way, saying we really take a stance and we're literally walking and being together as we take a stance for caring for our planet and our environment. So the idea is how can we have a preference for these as well? And then how can we implement those preferences, not as a strategy or as a outcome or goal in that sense, but something that's deeper than that. But thanks for the question. Yeah.
And you will see these and our actions in these woven throughout our strategic plan because it's part of our mission.
Come on. Always has.
An easy one, Kim.
I'll try. So I've long wondered why the choice of the wording walking with the excluded. Excluded seems so extreme as opposed to walking with the less included or some other word. Why that choice?
I don't know exactly. And of course, these all come out in different languages and may have been worked on in one language originally. But I think precisely because that it didn't, maybe it shouldn't be so softened. You know what I mean? With more nuanced language. Excluded, I mean, for instance, I often will talk about representation, who's represented in different ways in all kinds of settings. Here, I think also it emphasizes the fact that we can exclude. And so there's a whole, in the spiritual exercise of St. Ignatius, there's a whole part where we look at our own failures, our own sinfulness, to be frank. And I think there's a way in which the word exclusion says, we've made mistakes of not including each other. So let's talk about how we can cross back into relationship where exclusion doesn't exist. So I think it might be more because of that emphasis and not kind of soft. I don't know, but I wasn't at the table when they came up with these.
And also when you think about it, this is shortcut to a very much longer explanation.
That's true.
And on this one, it's walking with the excluded and the vulnerable. And so you'll see the more inclusive language about what the real meaning is. And again, it's creating that culture of encountering and depth of encounter and depth of understanding and walking with. Yeah.
So something I think ties into some of these themes is a concern that I've had, and I think a lot of people have, about the role of social media today and manipulating people. And I think especially young people who are very reliant on social media. And when we talk about walking with the excluded and caring for our common home, trying to convince people that certain groups are not, not worthy of walking with because of their, of taking things out of context or even, falsity, and the question of artificial intelligence even disturbs me more. The idea that people can be manipulated using misleading media. And I know we're examining, or a group is examining AI, but I'm wondering if there's some thought by the university to somehow educate young people about being cognizant of what is really the truth, how to discern what is the truth. I know faculty are trying to do that in specific courses, but make sure that people are not looking at things on social media and saying, oh, well, that must be how the whole group is, or that must be, or climate change must be wrong because look at what's happening in this place, So
I
that's
think,
my concern.
yes, a great question. And I think what you see, and you hinted there, is that that's happening in depth within classrooms. I don't know a faculty member that isn't tackling those very issues, those issues of understanding what's real, what kind of research is there, understanding the use of AI. And again, how you query, how you prompt results in different kind of results. And then walking through students of that in the classroom, understanding that what they're perceiving isn't the entire picture. I know that we've got a three-prong approach, and I'm looking at Dr. McGivney-Burrell back there. We have a donor that has donated graciously to our university to help us have an approach in the classroom with AI. And most of our faculty have taken one of three options. Number one, they're saying, my classroom is a computer-free zone. I want you to think, I want you to talk, I want you to write, and I don't want any devices. And some of our faculty do that, and I'm wholly supportive of that. Another group of our faculty say, AI is something that I want my students to engage in, and I want to help them engage in it in a meaningful way, and so that they help them engage in that responsibly. And then there's a third group that are really taking it on to say, how does it affect my discipline? How is it going to change the way that the work happens? And then really researching that and then leading the rest of their department through understanding those changes that are coming. And I think all of those approaches are really, really important. And then one of the things that ties into these apostolic preferences really is what it means, and I think it's something that we do well, what it means to be human in a world that is far more digital and robotic. And that's something that we really can lead on and talk about and have conversations.
I think to accent what Cheryl just said, for students to come out of our experience here to understand a deeper sense of their own humanity, their own giftedness, their own ability to overcome obstacles, that we want them to understand that deep sense of humanity. So in a world where that can slip away pretty quickly in the way we now communicate, in the way we share information, absolutely. Later today, there'll be a group of students in Dan Joyce's Theology 155 who are doing an in-class writing assignment. You would think I just asked them to do something radical. I'm actually going to walk in with blue books. Blue books are back, folks. I just want you to know. And maybe even when I get them back at the end of the day, I might see that cursive is coming back. If cursive is coming, readable cursive. Now, I don't do readable cursive. I can't write readable cursive. But anyway, the fact that I thought we'll see. But I had to keep reminding students, no, this is going to be in class and you're going to write because we're going to see how you write. We're going to talk about that. Sure. But yeah, I think the not losing a sense of humanity and that we have a freedom to do that here.
Maybe just a couple of comments for discussion, maybe verification. I'm looking at excluded and I wonder, excluded might include the oppressor. You want to exclude the oppressor, but, they've also gone in the wrong direction, perhaps. They've turned their face away from God. So also those that are siding with the oppressor may have been fooled. And so we want to bring them all into love. The other comment is more about AI. I'm not an expert there, but I wonder, I understand that it's taking up a lot of natural resources and destroying the earth. So, how do you balance that? How is that being considered?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the things that I'm trying to get into the habit in is when I do a Google search is to put -AI on my tag.
Oh, yeah.
And that means it does not generate AI content. And so I'm not using those resources. And if we can, you can get that through, which is just, again, it's just a very small personal choice to make in those areas. Yes, we're going to close here.
Yeah.
One of the last things that I want to say is that this has been really fun for Dan and I. This is kind of a kickoff to some things that we'll be talking about next semester. Next semester, we begin our mission priority examine process, and that's the process where we as a university examine how we're living our mission and how we're living these apostolic preferences. And so that process will go on all year next year. And then we'll have a site visit by teams from other universities to share what we have learned about ourselves and what we have thought about our goals for the next year.
And that's a really neat process. In fact, Cheryl and I have both served on visiting teams for other Jesuit universities recently, and it's been neat to be a part of that process. And it's also, we learn from each other as wider communities beyond St. Joe's in our own Jesuit educational world, which is really cool.
And it sounds like it's accreditation, but it's not.
It's not.
It is not.
It's more important than that.
It is far more important than that. It's an examine.
It is an examine. So Eric, are we okay this Mission Week? Should I be announcing any more features? Do we have a schedule you want to put up or something so people can? Our slideshow's coming, but lots of interesting events that are coming forward and just really excited. The students have the Battle of Pamplona this week on Sunday. Pamplona is the place in Spain where St. Ignatius was injured by a cannonball and ended up changing his path in his life and reflecting on his life differently. Well, that's a dodgeball tournament. We all have dodgeball trauma from our grade school, right? We all think, But they are forming teams and they're going to do a tournament that day. And there are going to be great prizes. Our Alpha Sigma Nu leadership for the students is doing Jesuit and St. Joe's trivia. Is that today? Tonight, Jesuit and St. Joe's trivia combined. And well, lots of wonderful events. Keep looking. I have to, just yesterday being at the Mercy at the Gates film and just seeing what wonderful work our students are doing, engaging in Kensington, and are also our mission fellows out of the mission office engaging in Kensington. That neat partnership and what we're learning from that community and how it's enriching our classroom and our students was really, really, really powerful and moving. So there's just a million ways in which we can start to learn how each other is engaging the mission in really, really profound ways. So let us keep exploring that. We had a wonderful induction of our Alpha Sigma Nu induction to Honor Society this Sunday, and all of the honorary inductees that the students selected, I didn't think of it until afterwards. They really came from all kinds of different parts of our campus community by way of folks who work here. So folks from the faculty, folks from our administration, especially student-facing services, and also those who help our students be safe and have a secure and wonderful campus. So even one of our public safety officers was inducted because the students said, we have these great conversations with this person who we are also inspired by her. We think she should also be in the Jesuit Honor Society. So it was just a neat way in which our students do see all of us in different ways and do really, I think, appreciate and value that their experience is made by everyone here and everybody who works here and makes St. Joe's what it is by way of its mission. So bon appetito and enjoy. Happy New Year. Happy Mardi Gras. We'll see you at the next community lunch.